Hi, I'm Jesse Jacobs, and I'm here today with my buddy Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, it's been ages.
Been ages.
Yeah, nice to have you here again.
It's nice to have me here again as well, in your jungle of an abode.
Yeah, I know, the rainforest.
So
Always good for tea talk.
We're here to talk about tea and your new Bible.
Yeah, my new Bible. Look at this, color-coded, pretty pictures.
Massive.
Scratch and sniff, I'm kidding on the last part. But Jesse shows up a bunch of times in this because I'll just tell a real quick story if that's okay. You can't see it, it's just behind the camera. But I had Jesse over at one point for dinner, and he said, all right, we'll cook dinner. And I stopped him right there and I said, I tell you what, you can cook dinner and I'll help with the wine and we'll go from there. We're just going to catch up on some business stuff and life and everything else. And you came over and you had Dutch oven, and it was effectively, okay, grab the chicken, I'll walk you through it. And you used to be sous chef or line cook?
A couple of different restaurants.
A couple of different restaurants, which I had no idea.
Yeah.
And so you're like, all right, grab this, coat it with olive oil, throw it in the pot. I'm like, all right. And then you're like, all right, chop this in half. And you're like, actually, you don't even need to chop it, just throw it in there. It's like, okay. You're like, mix it all together with some olive oil. Okay, done. Salt and pepper, great. What's next? You're like, we're done. And then you threw it in the oven, and that was it. I was like, what? That's it? And you may not realize that was a real turning point where, along with a few other things, I decided to write this. I had no idea, because those leftovers were like just the best stuff I'd had in weeks.
Way better day two.
So good, so good. Anyway, so I was thrilled to have you.
And it was less than 4 hours. That was like a 10-minute meal.
Oh yeah. It's not even. It was like 5 minute.
Right.
5 minute prep. And so I'm psyched to have not only Jesse, but a bunch of tea in the book.
Very exciting. Well, so what happened? So if that happened in 10 minutes and that helped inspire you, what happens in 4 hours? Where will someone be after 4 hours of devouring this?
So what I wanted to do, first after devouring hundreds of cookbooks and whittling it down by polling 500,000 Twitter and Facebook followers to really find the best of the best, I just realized that most cookbooks are not intended, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing if they're a reference, but they're not intended to be a logical progression. It's like a collection of chicken recipes, then a collection of vegetable recipes, or it's like appetizer, main, dessert, right? So what I wanted to do with one section of this book, at least, was, that's the literal part of the 4 Hour Chef, was to take, with the help of a couple of chefs and teachers at culinary school, take all the most flexible techniques and principles of culinary school, like braising, right, which is what we did, and compress it into 4 hours of total prep time. So you have 15 meals or so, about average of, I think, 9 minutes of prep time, where you learn how to saute, how to braise, so that when you learn how to saute one thing, you can saute them all, and so forth and so on. So by cooking twice a week, anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes of prep time, in the span of 2 months, you will have all the technical repertoire of someone who's gone to 2 years of culinary school, for the most part. I mean, obviously, to refine everything takes time, but sort of a bang for the buck. You will have full curriculum, no stress, no fuss, 4 fewer ingredients for each recipe in 2 months.
So it's way more than a 101. I mean, this is like speed.
Oh yeah, this is speed learning. So the rather narrow scope of the subtitle is The Simple Path to Cooking Like a Pro, Learning Anything and Living the Good Life. So very unambitious. But it's the book that my readers have been asking me for 4 or 5 years, a book on rapid learning. And I'm just using cooking to tell a lot of the stories, just like Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance uses motorcycles. But it covers languages, it covers sports, shooting three-pointers, marksmanship, archery.
Debris shelters.
Yeah, debris shelters, exactly. Survivalism. People said I was crazy, but mark my words, now you see New York City, people without electricity. And
it's serious.
It's a serious deal.
Right.
And so it's like, again, you can't really see it, but it's like I have a generator and like some gasoline and water. It's nothing crazy. It took me a few hours, an afternoon, one weekend to put together. So this book is about being a self-reliant, world-class learner. So everything that goes into that is in this.
And what would you say in terms of learning? If I want to learn, what are the principles of learning? What would you,
well, and this can apply to tea, and I definitely want to talk about the tea because I love tea, and it wasn't always the case, which I think is something a lot of people don't realize.
Converted you.
I was a convert, right? You had those dirty pictures. I had no choice. No, the first thing really is having a recipe for learning. So rather than saying I want to learn how to swim, I want to learn how to hit home runs, I want to learn Japanese, and then flying into it just in an ad hoc fashion, having a series of steps, which are, let's outline them really quickly, but deconstruction, so breaking something that's big and amorphous into its constituent pieces. Whether that's, let's say, swimming, where you look at, let's say, the arm movement and the leg movement separately, or language, and you're like, all right, well, let me break out just on a piece of paper, like vocabulary, grammar, okay, practice, like what's the frequency, just breaking out these different Lego pieces. Then you have selection, which is the 80-20 analysis, and the acronym is DISS, D-S-S-S. So deconstruction, then selection, which is the 80-20 analysis from the last 2 books. So just picking, let's say, the 2.5% of all vocabulary in a language that will give you 90% of all the vocab that's most frequently used, right? And learning how to really focus on that. Then sequencing, so putting things in the right order. For instance, with golf, and I'm fascinated by golf, but I don't play much. And when I looked at it really closely, you look at a lot of top coaches like Stan Utley, and they say, people come to me to fix their form. Their form is fine. It's just the sequence is off. Like, they move things in the wrong order, so the outcome is bad. And that's true with cooking, it's true with languages, etc. Then stakes. And stakes is just creating a carrot or a stick so that, being a fallible, lazy human, you actually do whatever the program is that you promise yourself you're going to do. That's it. That's the basics.
That's how to learn.
Yeah, that's the basics. And I sort of outline it with dozens of examples how to become a good meta learner, like to get good at that process. Then there's other stuff like more advanced, like compression. So how do you take, let's say, 6 months of culinary school and compress it into 48 hours, which I did one weekend with a friend of mine who's COO of Witchcraft and has worked in a lot of Union Square Cafe, L'Espinasse, a lot of great restaurants in New York City. But we'll keep it simple.
Sort of like in The Matrix, where you jack into the system and they upload martial arts.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, I want to get people as close to that as possible.
That's pretty cool.
And my position is, certainly just from having explored this for the last few years, I really do think it's possible to become world-class in 1 or 2 things per year. And meaning, world-class meaning top 5% in the world. I really do. With concentrated, often contrarian methods, I really think it's possible. So
I think what you said there, concentrated, i.e. focus, is probably the secret, but probably the biggest challenge at the same time. Like, we are so distracted.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Like, how the heck did you focus even?
Yeah, well, no.
Hundreds of thousands of followers.
Right.
It's
It's
you
like,
spend your days and nights.
To get this done in the midst of doing everything else that I do requires a certain set of habits and ritual, which is actually related to how I got into tea. So it's like, I was never a tea guy. So for what it's worth, this is, I believe, the first book that instead of wine pairings has tea pairings.
With food.
Like with food. Yeah, tea pairings with all of the core curriculum meals. So from sexy time steak, we can get into that later, some other time, to cauliflower mash with curry and whatever it might be. Tea pairing for each one, which is really cool, and it works out. And I think that the origin's kind of important as far as my tea habit. So I was never into tea. I was like, all right, that's for people in Berkeley or whatever, right.
Taoist Masters.
Yeah, right. And Taoist Masters, like, look, I'm in the U.S., not part of my vocabulary. And then I lived in Argentina, and it was like the truck drivers, the librarians, the teachers, it didn't matter. Everybody drank yerba mate. And I was like, all right, well, I'll start drinking yerba mate. And I started drinking yerba mate, and it calmed me down while stimulating me at the same time, which is something I'd never experienced before. And I used it to write the first book. I mean, the 4-Hour Workweek was a combination of a ritual, which was yerba mate, 1 or 2 glasses of Malbec, and I had my ritual. And I think that ritual, certainly the ritual that is a cue to slow down, is really lacking in the U.S. And the only way that I can, for instance, put together the concentrated time and block out that time to do something like this, and it's true for any writer, is to slow down so that sort of the mud settles and you can see through the water a little more clearly. Anyway.
I think that's a huge secret. Like, people probably don't realize that, but you should hang a lot of weight on the words, slow down, because we're just going faster and faster. I mean, it's what my business is predicated on, getting people out of their zone of nonstop connectivity thinking and just stopping for a moment.
Yeah, and I think the easiest way to speed up is to slow down.
Right.
And that's not some weird like Zen koan, but if you don't have time, you don't have priorities. And the only way you figure out which priorities land where in what order is to slow down and really do a little bit of deliberate thinking as opposed to just indiscriminate action. Mm-hmm. So for me, at least, it's a practice. It's just like going to yoga or doing meditation. Like, tea is a practice. And not in some weird esoteric way. It's just a pattern interrupt and a ritual that I find really helpful for facilitating healthy behaviors. As opposed to just being like all day long, which is kind of my programming.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I mean, I'm inclined to just be like a hard charging, win at all costs kind of guy. And this is one of the things I use to curb that.
It requires laser beam focus.
Yeah.
I think that's, you look at anyone world class in anything, athletes, writers, whatever, it's like you got to be able to focus in. And so for me, it's the same thing. Like tea, the ritual of tea has become that practice ground or training ground where it's so easy. I guess that's where I was excited when we talked about you're including tea in here. It's like, wow, one of my goals is to get people into it. But how? They're so overwhelmed by, oh my God, this is tea and this is how you brew it and you need boiling water or whatever. Like, how do you make it easy? Yeah. And I think that was part of the interesting discussion that we had. And how do you make it so approachable where it's just water and leaves?
Yeah.
That's it. All right. So
for sure, giving them an easy point of entry. So what are we looking at here?
Here we're looking at a little variety of some of the teas we have. And I guess the important thing, which they can learn more in the book, is that the critical, most important factor in tasting tea, pairing tea with food, and even having the health benefits from tea is sourcing fresh, small batch tea. Yeah. Just like heirloom tomatoes and other local produce, it's the same applies to tea. And for me, that's where it gets exciting, where we get to meet the farmers and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So you can see the differences between these only because the leaves are so consistent. Yeah. So this one here is a white tea, and it's named after the little downy white hairs on that. Yeah. And those are called Bai Mudan, or Bai Hao. The name of the tea is Bai Mudan. And this is a tea that is from the Camellia sinensis plant, but it's not processed. Mm-hmm. So there's no heat, no steaming involved, just air dried. Mm-hmm. Very different flavor profile than the next one here, which is a steamed Chinese jasmine scented tea. Mm-hmm. And for scenting, when you have good tea, you don't really need to flavor it. Yeah. But so many Americans and people all over the world are familiar with Earl Grey or cardamom, vanilla. So what happens is when you take the raw material, jasmine flowers, and blend it with good tea, you have two awesome things that happen. Yeah. Most tea out there, tea bags and old tea and sort of mass market tea, is just artificial synthetic spray on flavor. So I'm not a fan of that. It's not as healthy. It's cheaper, but
the Pam of tea flavoring.
Yeah, exactly. It's spray on.
Yeah. General rule, something sprayed out of a can. Not always, but generally not a good idea to consume.
No, and generally also, when something tastes so cloyingly sweet and chocolate-like, it's because it's not authentic. Right? It should have a complexity to it. Here we have a monkey-picked style oolong, and you can learn more about these in the book. This is actually a blend. This is black tea, which is a fully oxidized tea, blend with cardamom pods, ginger, a little bit of licorice, black pepper, and really complex, really creamy, full. And this is the only tea we actually boil the heck out of, with ideally raw milk, whole milk, something fatty that binds with it.
You use coconut milk? Or not quite? What do you find?
I use raw milk, which is illegal in much of the world.
I know. Yeah, you and your Amish friends can get hauled off by the FBI.
And I'm pretty much
But it's delicious. Here you can get, we're spoiled in California with millions of hippie demand. We have
everything.
We have raw milk out of the store. Yeah, right.
And but you can brew it, you can cook it with anything. It's just, I find it tastes best with whole milk. And it's full of caffeine. We get a lot of people converting out of coffee because of all the challenges with coffee into tea with this one. It's a great entry tea.
What is the name of this one?
Masala chai.
Oh, this is the masala chai, yeah.
Exactly.
And what other teas would you say are pretty high octane? Like a sencha?
So Japanese matcha.
Matcha, that's the one.
You're eating the tea. So it's like those leaves you're actually digesting down. And it's because it's shade grown and pulverized. And it's like our espresso version of tea.
Cool.
Over here we have Maiden's Ecstasy. It's a tea from southwest China, from Yunnan province, and that's a pu'er, fermented tea. And you have a picture of it in there in a big disc.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Pu'er is often served in this kind of a pot here. It's an Yisheng pot.
It also comes in large Frisbee-like packets oftentimes. It was pressed on top of stone. And I actually spent some time in China exploring pu'er, but it's very earthy, very barnyard-like.
Barnyard, yeah. Bad pu'er
very peaty.
They call it horse sweat tea because it has that urea-style flavor, which is not desirable. You want peaty and earthy, but not horse sweat.
Not horse sweat.
And then lastly, this is not even tea. So people think of lavender, licorice, lemongrass, mint as teas, but those are hot beverages or infusions, and this is like that. So this is a turmeric based. It's one of the holy herbs in the world.
Love turmeric.
Super healthy. Blend with blood orange and a bunch of other good things.
So delicious. So turmeric was one of the most consistent elements when I was exploring in Okinawa, also related to the book. Found people drank turmeric and fermented turmeric tea every day.
We're looking to get that one. You can't find it anywhere.
So hard to find.
Yeah.
They won't let you in the factories or anything. It's good. It's really tasty.
Is it like pu'er turmeric at all because it's aged, or?
Not really. I was very curious to know. Maybe I was having bootleg non-fermented, but labeled as fermented. I don't know. It didn't have that earthy flavor of pu'er.
Yeah.
And I just want to explain to people why I'm chewing on this. So one of the challenges of learning to cook for me was acquiring flavors. I found it really hard to remember, let's say, the flavor of cardamom, or like to anchor it so that when I had it later, I'd be able to identify, oh, that really tastes great, that cardamom. And just a tip, because this could even apply to tea in a way. Actually, no, of course it applies to tea. But for foods that you might not consider putting into tea, whether it's basil, thyme, whatever. Thyme makes delicious tea, by the way. Is that I had trouble with cardamom when I was in Kolkata, India, also for doing research for the book. And I just couldn't get it. I just could not get it. And then I received an email from the Monell, I think, Chemical Senses Research Institute, but the Monell Institute, Monell, from a few PhDs there, and they said, we thought this might be of use to you. And they pointed out that the I guess, flavor receptors or taste receptors for foods, herbs, etc., are not just in the mouth, but actually also in the esophagus, and even as far down as the small intestine. Wow. So what I then started to do, instead of just chewing on something and trying to nail the flavor, is I would steep it, no matter what it was, in a little bit of hot water, pulverize it, steep it again, swish it around, and then drink it like wine. And sort of like aerate it, swish it around, and then I finally was able to nail these tastes that I was never able to.
And by nail, what do you mean? Understand?
What I mean by nail is that later I'll be able to identify it in a meal.
Right.
As opposed to like bugging my girlfriend 100 times, being like, "Is this basil?
What's in here?
Is this basil? Is this basil?" She'd be like, "No, no, no," and then I'll be like, "What is this?" She goes, "You know that one." I'm like, "No, I don't." She'd be like, "Basil." It's like, why can't you get this, dumbass?
Right.
And anyway.
Well, the other amazing thing is that when you have quality ingredients of any type, even if you can't put words to it, there is something sensual that gets ignited. That really there's sight, smell, taste, texture, body. All these senses get triggered, and for me, that's what a great meal is about.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, that's good wine, good tea, and it's like, how can we find a life that has that richness is kind of, that's my mission, it seems.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. I mean, I'm a lifelong, not just a non-cook, but anti-cook. Like, I work so that I have enough money so that I don't have to cook. That was sort of my attitude. And there's a lot of validity to that when people try it in the normal way. It's like, I can't take 2 hours to go like grocery shopping, this, clean up. I wouldn't do that either. But what I realized for writing a book on learning why cooking and tea is in a way, I mean, cooking leaves in a certain respect, right? And so cooking across the entire spectrum is the ideal dojo for fine-tuning human potential because you're dealing with all the senses. Like you just said. Like, there are very few things where that's the case. And so the kitchen ends up being
a dojo.
Yeah, perfect place.
Right. It's awesome. I mean, it's such a cheap place to go to practice your yoga of cooking.
Yeah.
And yet so few people even think about it. So
I want to see if we can find just an example so people are like, what? How the hell is there a pairing, like food? I don't get it. So I want to give an example because you were super helpful with this.
Sure. Well, then the other thing to note, just so good tea has a unique aroma, a taste, an aftertaste, a body, a viscosity, and all of those nuances you can look to, just like with wine, to pair it with a meal. And so that's one of the things we talked about. How do you take your dish you want to prepare and match it up? Okay,
so I said sexy time steak, so we'll talk about sexy time steak. So this is so you can see how it's kind of laid out here by skills. This is again what is being conveyed that you can apply then to any recipe or cooking without recipes. So sexy time steak has to do with boosting testosterone and get into pine pollen, which is actually biochemically or molecularly, basically just testosterone. It's pretty wild. But we go down the side here. We have optional pairings, music pairings, Sexy Back by Justin Timberlake. So they're music pairings for every dish as well. But this is the Maiden's Ecstasy. So, and here's what we have in here. This is the equivalent of heavy, rich, and dark red wine. Earthy and creamy with notes of bittersweet coffee and even espresso. It brings out any smoky, earthy, or gamey qualities of meat. So maybe you could just talk about that, because it was really fascinating to me to have you explain the teas very much like you would have wine explained to you, which makes perfect sense. I would just love to hear how someone at home, whether they get this book or not, could think about how to pair different teas with food, because I'd never heard anyone talk about that before, and I just found it fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing is to get in touch with your senses, to be aware enough that you're going to be looking for an aroma.
Yeah.
So I would actually start on the outside, visual. So what do you have visually going on?
Yeah.
And starting with tea, you should have something that's distinct and unique across the board. And that comes by looking for a consistent leaf, size, shape, and color, consistency. And you start with that. So if you're looking to either start with a tea and pair food, or start with a food and pair tea, you think about you're making a steak.
Yeah.
Dark, heavy, rich. Like, all right, let's think about a tea from the visual first.
Right.
Next, you're looking at aroma. So when you brew these leaves, what kind of impact are you looking for? So for me, I would not think floral, fruity, tropical when I have a steak.
Right.
It just doesn't seem natural. I mean, you kind of like with like. And I think it's the same as wine. You're not going to drink a sparkling champagne probably with a steak.
Yeah, it'd be.
I'm sure there's rules you can always break.
Wouldn't be right.
You wouldn't be right. So I think the rough rules are very, very similar to with wine.
Yeah.
So then aroma, and then body. So what you have fat, you have some texture in the steak, you have richness, maybe mushrooms, cream sauce.
Yeah.
You want a body of the tea to be able to match up to that, not for it to feel like warm water and just get diluted away. So the body, and then lastly, the taste, which hits from your lower intestine all the way up through the tip of your tongue, the sides of your mouth. What kind of flavor, and this is probably the big theme, will go best with a steak. And I like to think either contrast, like totally different, maybe jasmine if you're really going to heighten the accents of both, probably not in that case, or complement. And for me, pu'er would be a no-brainer. So pu'er has all that viscous body. Good pu'er, like the Maiden's, has this chocolatey, rich, earthy, almost brie-like quality of a cheese, which, it's not for everyone, but with a heavy dark steak, and you can even drink it along with wine. Heavy, rich, dark red wine, awesome. It holds up. And what it does, it actually makes the flavors of each of those other areas pop out. So the cream sauce, the steak, all those things will be heightened, almost like adding MSG to the rest of the meal. So,
can't beat MSG.
Can't beat MSG, and if you can get it naturally.
Side note, so, just because I like digressing, so the Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, if you look at it, it's sometimes called the Italian MSG, and you get these crystals on the outside, these white crystals. That is pure MSG.
Right. Is that in the salt cheese that the Dutch Gouda is aged as well?
It might be, but when you see that on the outside, it's effectively pure glutamate, which is then what people associate with the umami.
Right. Japanese cooking.
Japanese cooking. And I was just going to say with steak also, for those of you who want to mess around with like hamburgers, let's say, almond butter on hamburgers.
Wow.
Amazing.
Cooking it with it.
No, just put it on at the end.
Oh, okay.
Who would have thought? Weird.
Where'd you learn that one?
Where did I learn that one? God, I think it's Chicago.
Okay.
You can do some pretty weird stuff. Or like miso paste on steak when you cook it.
Wow.
Is really intense. I feel like it really super intense stuff. So should we try some?
All right, so let's brew some. Main deal in brewing tea, people can get crazy, scientific, complicated on it, but we'll boil it down to its basic.
Yeah.
You need a brewing vessel.
Yeah.
I like whole leaf tea because you get more value, you get more freshness, more aroma, health benefits.
Yeah.
So if you're going to use whole leaf tea, you want a brewing vessel that will decant it.
Yeah.
That will separate the leaves from the water.
Yeah.
Next thing, drinking vessels, cups.
Where can people get nice serviceware for tea? Any thoughts?
From Samovar, of course.
Oh, of course.
But honestly, we don't sell much. I like to think of us more as like in the business of the. Like the razor blade business. We like to supply the tea and teaware, Japantown. You look at like nice Japanese textiles and furniture stores have them. These are Japanese.
Yeah.
They're just more elegant than the Chinese kind of stuff you buy from Chinatown.
Yeah.
But approachability is key. If you need paper cups, go with paper cups. Coffee mug, whatever.
Yeah. Got it.
probably the most important factor in having a delicious cup of tea is not your thermos, right. This is a nice one, is filtered water.
Yeah.
So bubbling spring, not too high in minerals, not too soft, but filtered water is the best. Boil the heck out of it. Just bring it to a rolling boil and turn it off. Don't even worry about all the funky temperature stuff. You want to know the water's been at least boiled hot enough to extract the flavor. In almost every tea, you can brew with boiling water. Some of the fancy high-end Japanese senchas I wouldn't, but we don't have to worry about that. So you've already made our boiling water here. We're going to try the monkey-picked Iron Goddess of Mercy.
This is one of the most intense tea names imaginable. Yes, I love that name. Yeah, tell me the backstory on this.
So Buddhism, there's the Bodhisattva. You've heard of that. The goal of the Bodhisattva is to bring enlightenment to everyone else before themselves. So they're putting everyone else first. And there's the Guan Yin, the Iron Goddess, the female incarnation of the Bodhisattva, and this is named after her. So.
Where does the monkey pick come in?
So monkey pick basically means highest grade.
Oh, okay. It's not like a derogatory term for field workers or something?
No. It's supposedly it used to be picked by monkeys back in the day. They would scamper down. So side note, good tea comes often in harsh growing conditions where it struggles to survive. And
just like wine.
Is it like wine?
In many cases, yeah.
You kind of like barely almost kill the vine to make it just vibrant and robust. So like that in tea and high mountain tea where the temperatures vary wildly, it's windy, it's cold, make it more challenging to survive. And it's a kind of top tier tea that grows in these craggy cliffs.
So I want to, I'm sure you're going to bring it up, but just to talk about steeping time with high quality leaves, because this is something that also kind of came as a surprise to me because it ran counter to.
So people often, if you read the instructions of traditional tea out there, say 3 to 5 minutes, 1 teaspoon of tea, this kind of thing. I've found that when you're brewing good tea, the first thing that's critical is to use more tea than you might think is natural. So we have like a heaping tablespoon of tea in here for just 2 cups. More tea, less time. So I also would brew this for anywhere between 15 seconds and a minute.
That blew me away because I'm used to, I suppose, out of habit, out of reading directions, like you let it sit in the cup or in the vessel and you just let it sit. You're like, I'll walk away, I'll make a phone call, come back, and it'll be ready. So like 30 seconds to a minute was really surprising to me.
Be present to it because it'll oversteep, but even so, with good tea, you can toss that first infusion and re-steep it. So looking at tea, we kind of see this as a nice amber infusion. Smelling it, you can get a whiff. So how would you describe that one?
Oh boy, I've kind of bologna sausage. I'm kidding.
Maybe.
How would you describe it? I'm actually more curious in the vocabulary that you would use.
The way we describe it, because it's hard to just memorize rote descriptions, I would say it's a little bit vegetal, a little bit floral. It's not really earthy like a pu'er, but it's nowhere near like a jasmine, right? As a first rote.
Definitely more vegetal tones to me.
I like the stuff back here. So then I would say kind of secondarily, what is there? It's kind of this sweet vegetal, but a little tropical hint, like this thick, heady kind of quality to it that's very immersive, almost fog-like. But then even deeper, I would say that this is how we do it with our training, so you're not just memorizing. What experience does this bring you back to in your life?
That's a good way. That's a good way to approach it.
And it's something that we find customers can really understand. It's like, wow, this reminds me of my dad mowing the lawn at the end of August at 4 o'clock at the end of the day, and it's hot, balmy, kind of grassy day, and that's what I get from it. And people really, we find, engage with that versus light and fruity with aftertones of apricot.
It's too abstract.
So you can see also this amazing, so these leaves have totally opened up.
Totally unfurled.
And this is nothing like, this is the same tea, right? But this is now opened, and that's just good tea when it does that. And it's consistent. That's another key factor. Wherever you get your tea, look for that kind of consistency, because that will be better tasting.
Well, so, I never really put it together with tea, but it's so true. So whether it's, let's say, something that blew me away, let's say whether it's tea, coffee, garlic, having the same uniform size.
Right.
And so the question is, well, why is that a big deal? And it never really hit me until I looked at coffee, which I know is separate, but with coffee, it's like you talk about different types of grinders. It's like, well, why do I want to spend another $150 for like a conical grinder? Well, because they all come out the same size.
Right.
So why is that important? Well, if you have things of different sizes, different surface areas in the same temperature water, then the extraction will be different on all these different
Right.
bits and pieces. Just like garlic, if it's really, really finely pressed, let's say, or finely diced, super overpowering sometimes. It can be even bitter. But a little larger and totally changes the tone of the dish. So I never thought about it applying to tea, but of course it makes perfect sense.
Totally, because if you have a tea that's a combination of, say, this leaf and this leaf, well, the small one is going to overbrew and the big one's going to underbrew, and it's going to make each other murky.
Yeah, muddles it up.
Muddled, and they call that flat tea. It's actually a derogatory term for tea. It's like, oh, this tastes flat. It's like, oh, how dare you? You call my tea flat, you are flat. Right, exactly.
How dare you, sir? Insult my oolong.
So tasting tea, like you said before, you want to slurp it, aerate it like wine. You want it to coat all your mouth and not get choked as you're doing it.
Oh, that's nice. It's funny because when I had the when I smelled it, it was very, very vegetal, and when I'm drinking it, I have much more of a floral hit.
Yep, I could see that. There's also a bit of roasted grain that I get in here, almost like some of the roasted barley or something like that. And for me, what makes good tea is that enjoyment of different experiences that take you on a journey.
Yeah, and I what I wanted to do also with the pairings, because sometimes the descriptions can overwhelm people and be intimidating. It's like, look, if that's too much, just drink what you like, and part of how you discover what you like is not only drinking it in isolation, but with combination with other things. Right? So when people ask me, like, when do you drink a Malbec, when do you drink this, I don't give them necessarily a description. I say, I pair it with this really easily, or I have a Chardonnay with this. And the reason I bought like I never liked white wine, for instance, at all. And then I had a Rombauer 2007 Chardonnay, I still remember, and I don't remember many wine names, at Brick's restaurant in Napa. And it just blew me and my brother away. Neither of us liked red wine, and it was the first wine I ever bought a case of was that white wine.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you can pair it to the experience as well, right? That's the whole.
Yeah.
What am I going to have? What food am I going to have? Where am I going to be? Am I driving, or am I having my pre-writing ritual? And so that's part of the options. And for me, it's how do you get people into it to make it easy. I think your book is awesome, good first start.
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, if I hate to say it, but it's because it's so cliche, but it's like, do you remember those? I think it was Life, the cereal commercials. Like, Timmy likes it, Mike or Mikey. Was it Mikey? Yeah. Well, this is like Timmy likes it. If Timmy can handle it as a complete, like, culinary illiterate, I got really into tea, and it was by trying a handful of things. It doesn't have to be super expensive. And then mixing and matching, and also just having the ritual. Honestly, it's like either first thing in the morning or last thing at night, picking the appropriate tea and testing it. I wanted to point out one thing that I thought was really fascinating also, and maybe you can just fine-tune the description, but if you have a caffeinated tea and you want to remove most of the caffeine, you can do a hot, short infusion and then dispose of that water and remove like what, 75%?
Majority.
Yeah, the vast majority of the caffeine, which I think is a really cool trick.
And again, a good tea will have so much. It's called actually patience. Tea that with a lot of patience has a lot of threshold for tolerance of flavor. So a good tea, let it sit for a minute or two and then toss it. It'll have so much patience. You will continue to get great taste.
That's cool. I like that.
So
can take a lot of abuse and keep on giving flavor.
Exactly. A lot of patience. So. All right, well, good. That was a great starter. Thanks for writing. Can't wait to read it.
Yeah. You have frequent flyer miles in this.
All right,
you show up quite a few times.
Very good.
I'm really excited about the opportunity to introduce more people to tea because it's brought me so much enjoyment. And the other thing I would say, not to get too far out there, but no matter where you travel in the world, people drink tea, and to have that common language with them gives you a bond where you might not otherwise have one. Like you go to, let's say I went to Turkey for the first time. It's like, I tried to learn Turkish. I had a little bit, but it wasn't much. But we had that tea. And like they saw that I enjoyed the tea. And it was really, really gratifying. So I would just say, like, this is really sort of the Esperanto of the food world.
Yeah.
Every culture has tea, just about. I mean, I have yet to come across one.
And now America is getting the groove.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So. And it's not something esoteric. It's not something weird. It's something that's been around for thousands and thousands of years. And it's really only now through opportunities to talk like this where I think it's becoming a cultural mainstay where people can really re-engage and slow down, like you said. And it doesn't mean slowing down for an hour. It doesn't mean slowing down for 5 hours. It could just mean taking the time to have a cup of tea last thing before you go to bed.
Yeah.
And I read a story by Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Buddhist monk, at one point. And the story that he was fond of telling, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was, if while you're thinking of doing the dishes, you're thinking of the peach that you're going to have afterwards, you're never really present. And when you're having the peach afterwards, you'll be thinking of the work that you have to do or something else. And I think tea is a really good opportunity to focus on the tea and to just take that moment to be fully present. And again, not in a weird esoteric way, in a very pragmatic, healthy, productive way.
Yeah. So cheers to drinking tea.
Cool.
Cheers to your book.
Yeah, man.
Thanks.
Nice to see you again.
You too.
All right.